don't know about any of you, but it certainly looked like the Chiefs were poised to go to their third straight Super Bowl last year. Especially, maybe not before that, but especially once they beat the Bills in the divisional round. Now, the Chiefs certainly presented themselves as vulnerable at times during the regular season. Some of the other teams like Baltimore and the Bills beat them. Tennessee, I think, wasn't it, beat them too, or the Bengals did. Like, they were beat by, a lot of these teams. So at that point, it didn't look like the Chiefs could go to the Super Bowl. Once you got into the playoffs, they steamrolled Pittsburgh, and then they're able to find a way to get past Josh Allen and the Bills. I'm looking at that and saying, they've got the Bengals at home. Like, this feels like the Chiefs are going to their third straight Super Bowl. And it only seemed further validated when they had a double-digit lead over the Bengals in that championship game. And then you had the really bad decision by Patrick Mahomes, what the hell he was thinking there, and like the entire momentum of the game changed dramatically right then and there. And they ended up losing in that AFC championship game and losing a chance at history to make it to 3 straight Super Bowls and, potentially a chance to win their second one. So I certainly think they would have given a game to the Rams, and I think they'd have given maybe even a better game. Although I thought the Bills were the team that should have went to the Super Bowl last year, it didn't happen. And it didn't happen for the Chiefs either. So you got this team that was on the precipice but failed to get it done. So what do you do in the offseason to sit there and say we're still in our window of championship contention? You trade away your number 1 wide receiver, Tyreek Hill, for a shitload of picks. That's a choice. Although, to the Chiefs' credit, if they really didn't feel like they wanted to invest that big amount of money into Tyreek Hill, and they felt like he wasn't as important to the system as it may seem, even though he's a great player and put up great numbers there, that in some ways maybe it forced Mahomes to be a little too heavily reliant upon him to the detriment of the offense and the system, then maybe it was time to trade him. And there's also that argument of, well, you just had Tyreek Hill in the last 2 years. You didn't win the Super Bowls. How much worse off could you be? Hey, there's an argument to be made there. And at least if nothing else, you can look at what the Chiefs got in the trade and say, that's a lot. So at least when they made the deal, they got a lot back in return for him. But that's not the only change with this roster in the offseason. Like, there was quite a bit of turnover here. Some of the guys they lost in free agency include from the secondary, guys like Charvarius Ward and Tyrann Mathieu. So Ward and Honey Badger are now gone. Byron Pringle has now left to go to the Chicago Bears. Melvin Ingram, Jerron Reed, Austin Blythe. They lost quite a few guys here, quite a few notable guys. In return, they signed guys like Justin Reed to replace Honey Badger, Marquez Valdez-Scantling to be one of their answers to replace Tyreek Hill in the Moneyball aggregate here. Him and Juju and Mecole Hardman and Sky Moore are going to be able to replace Tyreek in the aggregate. We'll see how that works. But certainly, quite a bit of change here. One good thing for the Chiefs was with that Tyreek Hill trade, they had a lot of draft pick capital. Their first 2 picks in the first round went to the defensive side of the ball with Trent McDuffie and George Karlaftis. Then they drafted Sky Moore, the wide receiver, in the second round, hoping that he could be one of those guys that can help replace Tyreek Hill. And they drafted other guys like Cook and Chanel and Joshua Williams and Darian Kennard. Some of them will play right away and have an impact. Other guys will be maybe long-term depth plays here that could start in the future. A lot of swings at the plate there for the Chiefs. And as this draft works out, it's going to look like in a couple of years a really good move for them trading Tyreek Hill because they will have replenished their team with young, cheap talent that helps keep them in a championship contending window. But what can we expect from the Chiefs in 2022? Probably quite a bit of the same, honestly. You still have Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce. So you have an elite tight end, and you have arguably the best quarterback in the National Football League. A lot of teams wish they could have that. You tell anybody they could sit there and have Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce, they say, okay, I'll take that. We'll figure out the rest later. And you've got that there. And then you look at their offensive line. Creed Humphrey, their second-round pick last year, came in and played at a damn near all-pro level. He was amazing. Got Orlando Brown Jr. outside. He's going to actually play it out through the franchise tag. This is a team that's addressed their offensive line, and I think that offensive line is going to be solid again this year. And then you've got Andy Reid. Andy Reid has his flaws at times, but he is still a hell of a coach. Sometimes the flaws can get more magnified, get more focus on them, and we can lose sight of just how great a coach is. There's a reason he went to so many NFC Championship games with the Philadelphia Eagles. There's a reason his Chiefs are in the position they are in right now, year in and year out. A lot of that has to do with Andy Reid. So there's some really nice strengths, especially on the offensive side of the ball. Some concerns, though, like obviously, how are you going to make up for the loss of Tyreek Hill? That's not a small deal. The running game, like Clyde Edwards-Helaire a couple of years ago, you took him in the first round. He hasn't done shit. Disappointment, yes. Lesson learned for me is you don't take that type of running back in the first round, especially if you've got a guy with more athletic skills like Jonathan Taylor available. That's the key. You learn and you move on. But they need a better running game this year. Got to balance out that offense a little bit, especially without a Tyreek Hill. And then defensively, for a team that has Frank Clark and Chris Jones and so forth, you would think they'd be better at rushing the passer, at least statistically, and they're not. So how well is that pass rush going to hold up throughout the course of the season? Maybe a guy like Karlaftis coming in can help that, but they certainly needed the help. In terms of the schedule, some of the marquee games for the Chiefs this year, Week 2 hosting the Chargers, that's going to be a big one for obvious reasons. Week 4 going to Tampa to take on the Buccaneers, that's a big one for obvious reasons. Week 6, here's another massive game against the Bills, and they get this one at Arrowhead. Fortunate for them. We're all going to be looking forward to that game because if it's anything like last year's AFC Divisional Round playoff game, we're in for another freaking instant classic. And then you look at weeks 12 through 14. They host the Rams, and they got to go to the Bengals and to the Broncos. As much as we talk about the Tyreek Hill loss, like it is just one player, and they still have Mahomes. They still have Travis Kelce. They still have Andy Reid. The talent cupboard is not entirely bare there in Kansas City. And when I say, well, they still have Patrick Mahomes and they still have Travis Kelce, those are pretty big I still haves. Andy Reid is a huge we still have. And not just because he's a big boy. It's because he's that great. So if I have any confidence in a team being able to overcome that and to the point like solving for the loss of Tyreek Hill's production in the aggregate, it's going to be the Chiefs, honestly. We'll see how it all plays out. Now, in terms of this division, like we saw some of the flaws in the Chiefs last year, and I think we'll see some of them again this year. I don't think they're going to win this division. I may have it wrong in terms of the team that I'm choosing to win the AFC West. I'm going to pick the Chargers. Some of you may pick the Raiders. Probably a number more of you are going to pick the Broncos. I just don't feel like this is a situation where I can look at the Chiefs and be 100% confident that they're going to be able to win this division. I think you've got too many teams in the division on the come up, and they have lost some notable pieces here. So they're due for a bit of a backslide this year. But when I say backslide, still being a playoff team, still winning 10 or 11 games in the regular season, and still a team you absolutely positively do not want to have to face in the playoffs because even if they don't win this division, they are always, with Mahomes and crew, they always are a threat to go on a run in the playoffs. And that could certainly still happen this year.